see what we talked about, and for the most part, the direction or what the accomplishments we think we got in the last year. Last year when I gave the State of the City, I stayed in office a total of 31 days. The main point of last year's State of the City was to talk about how the world saw Rushville and Rush County, and then how we saw ourselves. And we talked about all these different topics, and they were very broken out, and it ended up a very general conversation with not a whole lot, to be honest with you, of information that was relevant. This year we've been in office now 373 days, and I feel like we're in a much better place to tell you where we are and what opportunities we do have. In that 373 days, the role of being the mayor is a lot different than what I would have guessed going through the election. Probably the most important part is to listen and not talk quite as much, listen to what people are saying. One of the things we try to do with the city employees especially, we try to extend it out to the general public, is to promote a passion, especially for the department heads and what they do, and try to create an internal excellence, a kind of an attitude where they try to do the best they can possibly do. Another thing we do is encourage creativity. I think that we're all guilty of, we settle into a routine, we get comfortable with it, and that's kind of our achievement. That's where we achieve to be. What we try to do is ask them to try to continue to be creative. Look at what other people are doing in their position in other communities and see what they're doing and why, and do research. Another piece that we do is in a day's time, you're hit with, on a good day, you're hit with probably 10 to 12 things coming from all different angles. And you can easily lose focus. So one of the things that I try to do, what I try to express to the department heads is kind of maintain that focus. Even though it gets distracting to, you got a project that kind of heads you off in a different direction. At the end of the day, we said this was our schedule, this was our deadline, and try to remember that, try to get back to that. The other thing, and this piece usually is applied more to internal situations, is consistency. It's not uncommon to run across a situation where a department head has to deal with an employee, and he's a nice guy, I really like him. And our response is, what would we ask the other departments to do, or how would we handle it, and try to, across the board, be consistent with the way we deal with our employees. And the next piece is, a lot of times, I think, when it's an election year, you all like to portray that we made all the big cutting-edge decisions, but at the end of the day, a lot of times, it's just getting two people in the room that need to talk, having them sit and have a conversation. Some of the times, my role in that is very insignificant. Just getting them in the room is what my role was supposed to be. When we look at Rushville County, probably our biggest philosophical obstacle is something that probably was not a surprise to us. It was something we thought it might be last year, and indeed it is change. Introducing change into a rural Indiana community. One of the quotes from Elaine Grundy is, I think, applies, and she said in her experience, most people fear the change because they fear their own ability to cope with whatever is coming. So in other words, a lot of people will say, I just want it to stay the way it is because they've created a response. It's a very comfortable response. They don't have to change any of their preparedness for this new situation, so they get very comfortable in what they do. We push, and like I say, I think Mike can probably attest, we push our employees to go out and get on the edge of their comfort zone. Hey, it's not uncommon to say, why do we do that? That's the way we've always done it. Okay, well, what's that mean? Why is Zionsville doing it this way and we're not doing it that way? So we feel like getting people comfortable with changing, working on the edge of their comfort zone is a good thing. And I've actually had people say, well, since you've been in office, well, things have changed, but they haven't changed significantly. And what the attitude we've taken is we think that those small changes at some point add up to something more significant. And so, like I say, that is kind of our attitude and the role I play in day-to-day, the role I play in the city of Rushville. At today's lunch, we featured all of our department heads, all of our assistants, all of our consultants. So talking to them directly is relevant. But one of the things I've said, and I've said it throughout this year, that, and I think people will think that you're being insincere, but I'm not. I think the Rushville City Council is as good as any city council in the state. And I say that because we've got very diverse backgrounds. We've got people who approach problem solving completely different. I mean, you look at Brian Sheehan as opposed to Brian Tom. Backgrounds are different. The way they approach things are completely different. And a lot of people would say, well, you think that complete success of the city council is a 5-0 vote. We do have a lot of 5-0 votes, but at the same time, I think a 3-2 vote where we challenge each other as far as different beliefs and problem solving is an okay thing. And like I say, I do think that our council is very challenging. Sometimes that's a bad challenge, but most of the time it's just a very good challenge. They're very, they think very abstract. It's not uncommon to get a variety of emails from the council every day asking questions. Why is this happening? Should we do this different? So I enjoy working with our city council. The Board of Works is more of an advisory cabinet type of position, but they played a very important role. We expanded the Board of Works from 2 to 4 and do not in any way regret that. Have actually enjoyed the additional 2 Board of Works members. The city consultants have done everything we've asked them to do. They are very, I think each of them, and when I talk about them, most of the time I'm talking about the Department of Law, Grant Reeves, Jeff Wessling, and the new houses. All of them have settled into their roles in a very, I'd say, very comfortable way. All of them do an excellent job of what they do. The department heads, I don't know that I could be happier with department heads, and I'm not, I mean, it's not just something I'm saying. I think if you notice that in this last year, we probably had the worst drought that I know in our lifetime, and in some situations, years and years, and we lived through a blizzard. And I would say that, except for those who really live in the rural outreaches, for the most part, none of you were affected very much by those conditions. The city street department was out working all night until 8:30 at night. They had, by the time they had left the night of the blizzard, they had every alley and every street that had been plowed once, and they came back the next morning at 5:30 to do it again. So they've gone above and beyond. One of the things that Christy and I were talking about was whenever they had the incident in Connecticut. And as a parent, you pay attention to that. You're very aware of an incident like that. And that night, the night of the event, of the shooting, they had the mayor of the town. And they were interviewing him. And being in my position, you quickly wonder what would happen if that happened here. Would I have the right people in the right places? Would I be comfortable with anything like that? And it was very reassuring for me to feel that we did. We have good people. We have, some people would say, well, they seem young or they seem this, but they do a great job. They're very well prepared, very thorough, and I think in a lot of ways excel. So from being in my position, it was very, very relieving to know that you feel that way about the department heads that represent the city. The average city employee does a great job. Whether they were a supporter of mine or whether they weren't, doesn't matter. They come into work every single day and done a phenomenal job for the city. And then Rushville has I wouldn't say a deep reservoir of volunteers, but we have great volunteers. A lot of people that have stepped forward, contributed on boards, on different organizations that help this community. One of the things, and you see up here on the quote, one of the things that I think, it's not a day-to-day performance thing, but it's at the end of the year a performance thing, that when you look at, the quote here is from Ann Coakley. And Ann, in our last meeting of last year, said the general fund tax draw for 2012 was $181,000 less than we received in 2011. So as we closed out the year, our last pull of tax money was $181,000 less than the past administration pulled the year before. We closed out the fiscal year, we sat down and looked at going into next year. And when we looked at that, we were $171,605 more. So we were very, very efficient in the use of our money, and were able to carry money and resources forward into this year, which is something we think is very significant. And for us, that's a $350,000 swing. Where you would expect us to be $180,000 short, but we were good enough with our finances that we ended up going into the next year with more resources. One of the next set of items are the things that we run into that are just obstacles. One is right now there's no growth. We are seeing no significant growth, which maintains the budget constraints, and the circuit breaker still applies. So you don't see a growth in the resources financially in Rush County or in Rushville. The percentage of the community that lives in poverty is growing. The Rushville you see today is different than the Rushville 40 years ago. One of the things that we struggle with is seeing beyond this generation. A lot of times you run into people that you'll mention, what are your thoughts on something? And I'll say, well, I'm getting ready to retire. I've got 4 years left, and then after that, it doesn't matter. One of the things we try to promote is, what about the next generation? What about those people? Because depending on how we exit our time period, depends on what position they're left in. And then the thing that, this is one of the things that you hear a lot of people talk about, kind of on those pointing phrases anymore, is telling our story. We took a trip to Washington, D.C. We told our story, and it was well received, and the trip was worth it. One of the things we have to do and learn to do is tell our story at the state level. We really have never sat down with our state elected official and done the same thing that we travel to Washington to do. And that's something we have to do. The last thing is our constituents. That's why we're doing what we're doing tonight, is to try to inform the average person of why did this tax raise, why did this move, why did the city buy this, to explain to them what exactly we're doing and why we're doing it. The next item is one of those that for an elected official is a thorn in your side. You have to deal with it. These aren't what I would consider game changers, but yet they're annoying to us. The federal government, at some point, after Katrina, the federal government came in and said every levy that's in existence in the United States has to be recertified, or else the people who would be flooded by that levy breaking, their insurance will go up. So we will, at last estimate, have to pay $125,000 to have the levy that runs south of town recertified to prove it works. Because somebody said that was a good idea. Nobody gave us money to pay for that, but it's still something that someone said, I think it needs to happen, and we will be responsible for paying for it. The next item, and it's an item that's, I think everybody sees a necessity, is the Americans with Disabilities Act. What the federal government has said there is you have to have a plan to take care of ADA issues. And that plan, you need to have it in place, or else we won't give you any money from MnDOT anymore. So that is the carrot at the end of the string that tells you, I got to go out there and get it because they're going to freeze any NDOT funds. So we will spend probably in the area of $75,000 to do that, to comply to the federal government's mandate. And that $75,000 could have probably been twice that, but we brought in an engineer who trained our employees. Mike was actually the one who headed up that program, and they went and measured all of the right-of-ways, all the sidewalks, all of the curves, the ramps you see at the intersections. They measured the city buildings, the doorknobs, they measured everything. They put that information together, sent it off to an engineering company who will actually put together our program. But we were able to save the money as, opposed to having consultants come down there and do it for us. The next piece is probably the biggest, most significant piece. Phil is uniquely in tune with this next topic. I told people that, you hear people talk about the fiscal cliff and this critical point. This is our fiscal cliff. This is something that is significant. It is happening, and how we handle it and how we address it is going to be critical to all of us. The LTC, long-term control plan, is basically a study that says how we're going to control our water and sewer. And in that, the plan said, and more specifically, I'll go to the next slide, a CSO. Rushville is an older city. It has CSOs, and those are combined sewers. And that means that when I flush the toilet, when the rain comes down the downspouts, when the water goes down the grate outside here, they all go into one pipe. They go down to the treatment plant. They all share that one combined sewer. What you run into, and what our issue is in our long-term control plan, our deficiency is the combined sewer issue. That is what they focus on us. And what happens if you have a big rain event, the normal amount of people, dishwashers work, their showers work, their toilets go, and that is heading into the system. And then all of a sudden it rains. And it rains a bunch, and that line takes on water, whether it's because of leaks, because it's picking it up out here at the sewer. It goes down to the water treatment plant. It can't process it all, so it, as a safety valve, dumps it into the river. That's called an incident. We have approximately 7 to 10 of those incidents a year. The government says we're going to eliminate them. You, by your long-term control plan, have to eliminate them. If you look there, back before I took office, they had 3 options. One was A, which was $13 million. $13 million. Option B was $16 million. Option C was $8.6 million. We came into office. Mr. Stark, I think at the time, was president of the board, of the utility board, and went back and asked for option D. Option D is kind of a different answer to the equation, and at this point today, it's $7.8 million. So that right now is our best option out of no good option. This is what the treatment would look like. What it is a big tank. And so whenever you have these rain events, what happens is, instead of overflowing into the river, it overflows into this tank. This tank has 3 chambers. It goes into that tank. If it overflows it goes into a grate system, which takes out solids. And then if it were to overflow that, it's treated, which is a approved method before it hits the water. So that's what the facility, in essence, in its general terms, would look like, and that's where they have it positioned down at our treatment plant. Now, here's where our options kind of become very, very limited. If you look on year 2008, 50 days after being in office, the former mayor signed what's called an agreed order. That is the agreed order. That's the actual one. reason I included it in this is because a lot of people say, oh, it really didn't happen, you really didn't do it, it's not real. That is it. I could blow it up, you could read it. You could come into my office, 12-page order. What it says is that the city of Rushville will settle and compromise without action, hearing, or adjudication. In other words, whatever IDM tells us we're going to do, we're going to do. Doesn't leave us a whole lot of options. We are now, the clock is ticking, and we have until 2022 to have the whole process complete. So, at the end of the day, we are going to be burdened with some type of rate increase. Now, what that's going to be, we're not sure yet. We're trying. I think Phil would say we've got a lot of whittling to do on that stick to see how we get it into something that we think is tolerable. That is, the actual document up on the right-hand corner is the actual signature. It shows when we signed off on the document. So it leaves us with limited options. What we've said is that our choice would be not to kick it down the field, but to be proactive and try to address it in the best way possible. Could that mean going to the governor and saying, what can we do to help? Yes. Does it mean applying for grants? Yes. We're not sure yet exactly what all of our options are, but we're working through those options. And we promise to investigate all reasonable options. Obviously, there are parts, and we've talked about it, is some of the spending in that plan are things that we think we could possibly eliminate. One of the things that we feel like we have to include somewhere, probably here, is we are working on 16th Street, putting in a brand new street. Right now, it is designed without any water or sewer. We are going to put in a brand new road where we think that we're going to encourage and spur growth. That anybody that builds along that road will not have water or sewer, because there's no water or sewer designed in that road. We've gone back to the engineering company and said we have to have water and sewer in the road. We don't have any intentions of putting down a brand new road and turning around and digging it back up. So that is one of the items that we think that we need to have included. We do feel that we have to have a certain amount of improvements to the existing plant. The existing plant was built 40 years ago, 39 years ago. Most of the equipment has a useful life of 20 years. And in credit to our utilities, we have kept 20-year pieces of equipment alive for 40 years. But at the end of the day, we can't continue to do that and expect that type of results. We also need to, at the end of the day, we need to have meetings like this where we try to explain to people what exactly is the situation we're in, what we're going to do, and how basically we plan on handling this situation. That's all the bad news. The rest of it is good news, we think. As I talked about earlier, we talked about focusing. We focused on 4 different areas and turning around what we think was Rushville, the issues Rushville was having. Those 4 areas were pillars. You can call them a lot of different things. We call them pillars. One is economic development. Second is quality of life. The third is communication and transparency in that communication. And the fourth is community pride. And basically trying to instill confidence, enthusiasm back in people. Our job is to build a vision based on these principles and then share it with the general public so that they understand. Like I said, once again, it's communicating what we're trying to do, how we're trying to do it. And then there's the quote that says, it will cost you nothing to dream and everything not to. So even though you're looking at some obstacles, we're still encouraging our people to be optimistic about things. And we think we've headed in the right direction. This isn't a program we came out with. It's something we try to promote and espouse in almost everything we do is Rushville is open for business. We encourage business. We want business. When we look at the successes we've had in the different areas in economic development, the North Industrial Park, we have to give credit to the past administration. They applied for a grant. They deserve the credit for making that application, and like I said, we should give them that credit. We were able to, I think to our credit, we didn't throw it away. We didn't just walk away and say, that was something somebody else did, it's not what we're going to do, and to heck with it, we're not going to pursue it. We went out to Washington, D.C., we got the EDA grant awarded. It's in the process of being designed, and this summer will be under construction. John was one who went to Washington with us and is on the redevelopment board, so he has to help coordinate and sign off on all of the processes we are doing right now. This slide and this slide are both the marketing pieces for that industrial park. Those are things that we've handed out at site selector conventions. We have handed them out to businesses who might have an interest in them. The next item was the NTAD expansion. The NTAD expansion, something that wasn't common knowledge, something that wasn't even common knowledge to me. 3 years ago, NTAD was making a decision of whether they'd shut down our foundry. We were very, very fortunate in the fact that that wasn't the choice they made. They will be investing $26.5 million in at least 50 jobs into our facility. This is the company picnic, where they made their announcement. The next item might seem a little abstract, but I am proud of it. The ACDC put together, they hired a consultant to come in and talk about economic development. And they came up with a strategic plan. And what they did this time, which was different than what we've always done in the past, is they didn't put it on a shelf. They didn't just put it up somewhere and look at it and use it as a trophy. They opened it, and every single day they did a phenomenal job of trying to adhere to it. I think you've seen Carolyn Bunzendal, her employment is a result of that study. The changes you've made in a lot of the direction we've made, the difference in the different levels of economic development, buy-in for membership, all of those are based on this strategic plan to help make Rushville and Rush County more competitive. The other piece we have to give credit to is Jim Fenton, because we asked Jim to get a lot of balls in the air, try to get a lot of things moving, and Jim has been gone about a month now, and we are still pretty much every week dealing with something that could potentially go well in Rush County as a result of what he was able to get started. So those are good pieces. The next item is 16th Street item. We are in the final stages of getting one last estimate. And as soon as we get that one last estimate, that will allow us to let the 16th Street project, which will obviously go from the apartments west to what would be Spencer Street. And I think the letting as they're looking at right now is July, which would have construction later this year. So far we've talked about two significant projects that the city will be working on under construction, one that one of our industries will be working on, all in this year. The next item is the design of the Highway 52 project, and that's a 2014 build. But the reason it's on here is when NDOT came through and designed it, and it would be from Main Street out to Smith Implements. They did it as a total reconstruction. It was going to have new curbs, new sidewalks, new pavement, new utilities under that pavement. We were going to have to put the utilities there, but the state would be similar to what happened on Main Street. It was going to save us a lot of money by them coming in and doing this, us putting it in. And what they came back and said is, now we've decided we're not going to do a total reconstruction. We're just going to do a surface. We're going to grind the surface, put new pavement. A lot of people went to bat, and it is now back on the books as a total reconstruction. It will be inconvenient, but at the end of the day, we'll end up with a much better product. The next item is a bracket lawsuit. That was a lawsuit that came about 8 years ago, was involved when the annexation happened. It was it was in Bob's administration, it went through Murr's administration. We signed off on it probably 4 months into office. It's signed off, it's gone, we don't have to worry about it, it's not an issue for us. And the next item is we sold a big percentage of, we didn't sell, we leased a portion of our bundle of fiber that runs from our connection point down here and runs all the way up to the hospital. We leased it long-term to 9-Star, which allows them to provide services. That's one of the things is, and I don't think a lot of people know it, but Rushville was way ahead of the curve on fiber. They were way ahead of the curve, and this keeps us ahead of the curve. Quality of life is something that's kind of interesting. When I grew up as a kid, you were able to do a lot in Rushville. There were a lot of things that going on in Rushville, and if you wanted entertainment, you stayed in Rushville. As times have changed, that's not as much the case. So we are trying to create and encourage programs that improve quality of life by improving the quality of the place where we live. Some of the things that we're doing are the trails extensions. Those are things that we think the community is very, very clear in, that that's something they appreciate, that's something they want to see expanded. Some of the things that have been done, the street department came and did haunted trail. People have asked me why I had them do that. I didn't. They just said they wanted to. So we let them do it. The community liked it. And we're glad to see that they felt comfortable asking if they could do a new program. Ice skating rink was one the Parks Department decided that they wanted to do, to be able to try a new idea. I think, as you saw, if you looked at the paper today, they're still trying to figure that one out a little bit. But like I say, it's an effort. They're trying new things, and that's a good thing. We reinstituted the Parks Patrol, got them active. Another thing we did was we brought in the boat, which was very, very popular at the end of last year. But things like that, Riverside Park will have on January 31st an event here open to the public when they announce their next year's schedule. And I think by having that event, they must be very, very confident that next year's schedule is significant enough to have, and Carla's smiling, so I think she's pretty confident. The next year's schedule is something above what people would expect. That is a concert held here one night, probably 1,500 people. Right now, that's probably one of our biggest tourist bureaus. That's, I can tell you, that's the Colts tight end and a lot offensive lineman who came to town as part of. Andy Wilson is now the booking agent. Andy is John Wilson's son, who does Verizon and Seco, does all those. He now does all the booking for Riverside Park, and we're very fortunate he has a lot of connections that allow us to do a lot of things that I think make it a special venue. The next item is wellness program. I know Mike's excited about this. It's a wellness program, and it's a preventative health program that the city's getting ready to. We've investigated it some. We're going to investigate it more. And basically, like I say, it's a preventative health program to try to help the health of our employees. We've talked about doing one that involves more citizens, but as it is right now, the FIT program is doing a wonderful job at it, and there's no reason for us to go out and compete with the programs they're providing. We are talking, and matter of fact, FIT had a meeting tonight about doing a mayor's 5K event on doing it all on our trail. Because we know that a lot of people don't even know about the trails down to the Riverside Park and the industrial park. So an effort, probably not really as much for quote unquote the mayor, but to try to get people introduced to all the different trails we have in Rushville, and probably do it for our autism awareness. So just try to help a cause if we can, and that's the cause we selected. It'll be the weekend before the mini marathon, which will be kind of a nice tune-up event for those people who are planning and competing in that. The other item is, and I'm sure this is probably why Sandy's actually at this a second time, Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce a year ago was in pretty tough shape. The ECDC was getting ready to move out of their office. They were pretty much convinced that they were going under, and the world was coming to an end. Rushville wouldn't have a Chamber of Commerce. We did what is probably a little out of our character, and we sat down and we decided we're just going to hire what we thought was the best person for the job, and as a result, we got Sandy. I would say the Chamber probably hasn't reached its heyday of when, the 80s, 70s, 80s, but it's definitely on a rebound. We're headed in the right direction. We've seen positive growth. If you go into the Chamber, it doesn't look like a yard sale anymore. It actually looks like a place you can go in and be proud of. It's a welcoming center. The next item we did, and this one applies mainly to people in need. We were able to get an Indiana Housing and Community Development Aging in Place grant for $373,000, and that those eligible for it were those who were showing need. And what it is, the goal of it is to improve their living conditions, to allow them to stay in their homes for a longer period of time before having to go to assisted living or nursing homes. A piece that tagged on to that was really fortunate for was they had a program that attached to your senior citizens fund. And we were able to qualify for a $33,000 loan at an extremely low interest rate. And then the senior center was able to get a $33,000 forgivable grant. So they never have to pay that back, and they're able to take $66,000 and improve the center for all of those people who use the center. The next item is an item that's new that we're starting to venture into, and that's the local philanthropy. We have the Chamber, we have the Heart of Rushville, we have a lot of organizations that, due to the economy, aren't able to get the funding that they would like to receive for programs. What we're trying to do is put together a philanthropy package that would allow people to give to them and be able to get tax advantages for that gift. David Wilkie is one that we have actually been successful in dealing with David on some of these programs. The next item is unsafe structures. During the last 4 years, we tore down 0 residential structures. This is one of the areas down on, I think, Pearl Street. This year, that's what it looked like before. This is a different lot, but that's what the lot looks like when we're done. Completely clean, put in dumpsters. We took down how many houses in how many days, Mike?
5 houses in 10 days.
5 houses in 10 days. So, like I say, at the end of this year, last year, we took down 5. And we're proud of that. I'm sure that we will have more in the future, but it helps the neighborhood. The neighborhood is able to, they don't have to deal with the rodents, the cats, the dogs, the falling down house, any of that. It just improves your neighborhood. Another thing we try to do is bring in new programs that we think will be successful. Next July 20th, well, it'll be July 19th, Riverside Park will have a concert in the park on Friday night. On Saturday, we will have qualifications for a kart racing Grand Prix that will go around the high school. That day we'll have celebrity races. You'll have businesses being able to rent karts to race each other. You'll have mayors from out of town coming in to race. That night, the fairgrounds will have a midget race. Gary Davis is partnering with the food pantry, where you go into that race that night. You'll either give money or you'll give food. The food will end up, like I say, at the food pantry. The next day we'll do the finals of the different go-kart races. So it's planned to be a weekend event. That's the logo there in the design for it. Another item, kind of in closing of this topic, was drainage south of town. Many people have talked about, well, we'll never be able to solve the drainage south of town, the issues going on that go through Circleville. This year, we actually got the approval of the contract for the Fraley River drain, which allows for a tillable swell, which should allow the water to get through that area quicker, thus eliminating, I don't know that it'll ever take care of it. You're talking about houses built in a pretty flat area. I don't know that you're ever going to get it completely taken care of, but we'll at least eliminate some of the bad situations we have, where, especially one where a kid couldn't get back and forth from the towel to the bus because of the running water across the front of their property. So those are things we're addressing. Communications. This may not seem like a big a deal. This is a completely internal piece. We have department head meetings every 2 weeks. We sit down and we talk about the different things facing each of the departments. We talk about the vision of each of those departments, where they think they're headed, how they're going to get there. Probably one of the biggest pieces is everything's a team approach. We are very, very demanding on the fact that if one of the departments needs help, that the other departments to chip in. In essence, there are departments, but at the same time, if we need help, there are no departments. The utility board has made some great strides. I can remember a day when the utility board used to charge the street department for, amount of water, and there were all kinds of trade-offs. Now it is just one city situation. And matter of fact, when we were talking about buying equipment this year, the utility said, well, we need to talk to the street department to see if we can share equipment. Do we need to both buy the same piece of equipment? So we're very proud of that. Leadership-wise, we're investing in our leaders. They've had leadership training, they've had budget and capital planning training, and I think tomorrow or the next day, the street department don't you guys get training in drugs? And the reason why is when they go into, the last time we went to tear down unsafe structures, they found I forget what the name of it is, but a meth lab, where somebody had set up a meth lab and there was an abandoned house, and when we went to tear it down, we found it. So the police department will do a training program for the street department to allow them to identify it, so that if we have that situation, they can call the police and they can come clean it up. The next piece of communication, I think, was evidenced by, obviously, the trip to Washington. I think probably one of the prouder pieces of it is, right here is the governor of the state of Indiana right now holding our plan. Our 7-point plan that we went to Washington to sell. He's standing there holding it. He's got a copy of it. It's with him today. We left it. And at that point, he can't say, well, I didn't know what you guys were doing, because we did a good job of communicating it to him and the other representatives we saw there. Another piece of communication is that February 1st, the council chambers will be streamable. So in other words, you can turn on you can get a laptop out, and it will allow you to watch the council meetings on the internet. Now, John McCain's not a big fan of this. He thinks due to the fact that Brian Sheehan's a part of our council, the councils will go on for an hour long. Because Brian will be doing song and dance in front of the camera. But from our point of view, those people who weren't comfortable coming out and sitting and watching a council meeting will be able to, if they want to, turn it on and watch it. If you want to, you can also go to our minutes. You can read the minutes of our meetings. You can click on a button, and you can hear the person talking about the motion being made, or you can click on the video button and you can see the motion being made and seeing the conversation that takes place. The next piece, and the piece that we're going to be working on most here in the near future, is the website. We want our website to be more interactive. We want it to be more responsive. Right now, it gets us by. I would say that's about it. We have delved into the area of social media. We use it a lot to do announcements, quick little announcements or reminders of things that are going on in the community. I don't know that I would say that we are cutting edge in it, but I know that we're probably we're by far not behind the curve. And then this year we'll be working with a wonderful radio station to do a radio program. It'll be a question and answer type program. That's until Star strangles me or I strangle her. But we look forward to it because it will be obviously the opportunity for us to at least once again get the idea of what we're doing and why we're doing it out to the general public. The next group we work very, very hard with is the school system. Dr. Williams has been phenomenal to work with for me. What we're looking for out of the school system is youth input and youth leadership to try to get them involved. Rushville, I would say, probably fits the category where we have a lot of gray-haired guys sitting around the room trying to figure out what a 20-year-old wants to do. I don't know if that's a real good strategy. I would say we probably need to get the 20-year-olds in the room and figure out what the 20-year-olds want to do. One of the programs that obviously was well publicized, could have suffered, was the DARE program. Bob Bridges stepped forward and took over the DARE program. And I'll be honest with you, sometimes you don't realize the value of the DARE program. But as part of the mayor's group, you get a lot of emails, especially when it came to the Connecticut shooting, of people saying, how do we stop situations? How do we become aware early? Is there an early warning system? Most of the mayors were talking back and forth about how do we get a DARE program started. And we were smart enough to keep ours going, even though some of the times it was during some kind of tough times. The last thing is, if you listen to anybody during the last campaign, you heard that the Chamber of Commerce hates the heart of Rushville, or the Rushville hates the Chamber. They're going to take each other over. A lot of things like that. Right now, we probably have, I'd say by far, the best relationship. The Heart of Rushville, Partners for Progress, both share office space. That office space is within the Chamber of Commerce. So that's a good thing. They're sharing projects, they're sharing resources, and that's what we need to get to. Community pride, community pride is obviously, like I say, trying to get people to be proud of where they come from and be proud of our community. We think that only helps us. The first thing we did out of the gate was we went to Scottsburg, Indiana, met with Mayor Bill Graham, and we formed Partners for Progress. Partners for Progress is a clearinghouse, very much in the same way that Scottsburg's is. And what it is an attempt to avoid duplication. Try to get people to communicate back and forth through one organization. Partners for Progress acts here locally as the old community center board, but yet it does a lot of different things. The chairman of that board is Jason Clemens, and Jason is doing a great job. But this was our first effort in admitting some things we had to do better and putting a structure in place to make that happen. I think in the next probably 3 months, you'll start seeing Partners for Progress doing a lot of information gathering that can be used by the city or the county. One of the pieces and the reason, the things that motivated me probably on Partners for Progress is I will be very honest in telling you that when we headed in a direction on this building here, because we had gotten 6 emails, I was disappointed that 6 emails would set the direction for something we would do. I will tell you that I said this afternoon, I will tell you that I can ask Brian Sheehan to put something out on Facebook and he can give me 6 answers in a matter of 30 minutes. And if I won 200 responses. And like I say, Partners for Progress and obviously the new technology and social media allow us a lot better input. The next item is an item that has been kind of a fun item. We sat and talked, and most of the conversations were with Brian and Sandy about drive through Brookville and it's chicken. You drive through Lafayette and it's what is Rushville? What do we get? What do we do? We talked about concrete midget cars. And we couldn't really figure out, and I don't know who came to the conclusion, but somebody said, we're very fortunate we have one school, and that school is a line. Why don't we do lines? The goal was 24 to 30. We thought that would be a really, really successful program to To date, we have 123 lions. The lion on the right was the Wilkie lion, and the one on the left was the one that won the popularity contest, which was Cabinet's Kiss lion. The FOP has taken on the program. They sell a desk version line, smaller line, but it still kind of continues, at least in the next item was Smile Fund, and I'll give credit to Brian on this one. This was one that he talked about and one he's moved forward. He's kind of taken advantage of it and taken advantage of it in a good way. It was a privately financed, fundraised program to help offset cost of improvements in downtown Rushville. And in its simplest terms, if Dave Payne wants to do something for $3,000, then he can get reimbursed $1,000. So a third of the cost can be reimbursed up to $1,000. We have 2 people now who are participating in the Smile Fund, and we're looking at ways to leverage those funds. The Smile Fund itself stays within the heart of Rushville. So the next item, and I said it earlier, it wasn't really meant to be that funny, but if we do see a good idea and we like it, we are really capable and willing to steal it. And one was driving through Morristown. A lot of people said we really like the planners. We think those are great ideas. And what we did was went out and found who supplied the planners, the plants for the planners, and asked the different companies here locally. It ended up being Vogel's got the bid, but they provide the bases from the same place that Morristown has and the same plants. So it was something like, say, we saw somewhere else that we liked and we built on it. Another thing we tried to do is lead by example. 2 of the city buildings received new landscaping last year as a way to beautify them. And we also have done a lot of buffering on the fences behind where we keep storage. Utility has done it. But just to try to, if we're going to ask the community to make their neighborhoods better, to improve their properties, we probably should do the same thing. Another thing is a kind of neat project out here at the point. We asked the state highway if we could take over maintenance of the triangle where 3 and 52 in the turn lane take place, and the grounds in front of the rock that sit out here south of town. They allowed us to do that. We signed a maintenance contract, and I heard the family planted 1,000 bulbs, tulip bulbs, in those areas. And then the other piece of it is downtown enhancement project. We talked about trying to get another project for this spring, trying to get the Heart of Rushville, trying to get the Irish group, trying to get different organizations to go together to allow us to do another project this year to kind of build on what we were able to do last year. In closing, Rushville did go from a community of 8,200 people to a community of 6,800 people overnight, and we will turn it around overnight. It's going to be a long process in some ways, but it's a process we think is worth the effort. Personally, I hope that, as you see here, I hope that we have responsibility to the future generations to position ourselves for prosperity and to address our challenges. We need to look past our comfort and leave the next generation with an opportunity for a bright future. And that's, like I say, it's pretty simple. We are at, a lot of us in this room are at the second part of our lives. It's going to, I'm sorry to surprise you, Dick. But we have to start looking at the next generation and getting them in a place where they can be successful. And so, at the end of the day, I'll end this the exact same way I did last year. If you've been around a while, you obviously have the opportunity to step on people's toes. And so you ask them that you may not be for me, but I'm asking you to be with me. And so in essence, you may not be your biggest fan of mine, but I think we're headed in a direction that's a good direction. And we hope that, whether it be the service organizations, the individuals, that they will join us. And thank you for attending. Appreciate it. I think it's kind of encouraging to see this many people out on a Tuesday night during a basketball game and a lot of other things going on, and people come out and take enough interest in the community to see what they got done last